Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. I'm your host, Chris Grosso. And for this episode, we're going to talk some college hoops, going to talk some Big East basketball, and more specifically, going to get into some Seton Hall men's basketball as the team makes their march to the tournament. And me being from the North Jersey area, figured it was a good topic to touch on. But I'm joined by J P Pelzman of Rivals.com, who covers the team. For the North Jersey listeners, he also worked for the Bergen Record. And JP, thanks so much for coming on this podcast episode. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Just want to get into some Seton Hall hoops here. How would you describe their season so far?
I think it's been a good season. I mean, I think it's the kind of season, Chris, where, people would have signed for it 3 or 4 months ago, but now the way it kind of ended, I think people have a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth. The fact that Seton Hall lost two games last week, got kind of torched from beyond the arc against Villanova and Creighton, but still they did finish in a three-way tie for first. They're the third seed in the upcoming Big East tournament, and most bracketologists have them pegged as a number 3 seed. So it was a pretty good season. Like I said, just unfortunately for them, it ended kind of on a down note.
Yeah, but like you said, they're still projected 3 seed right now. Pretty good, as you were saying, as predictions for the team going into the start of the season. With the Big East tournament coming up, what are you looking for out of this team?
I think they really need to beat Marquette in the quarterfinal. I think they just need to get that winning feeling back. I don't think it would. Not that it would, I mean, who knows? Maybe it would affect their seed. I don't know if they would drop from a 3 to a 4 with one more loss. I don't know. I mean, I think the body of work and the schedule they played, which is ridiculously difficult. You should have them as a high seed. It shouldn't hurt their net too much, but their net rating. But I just think confidence-wise, I think they could use a win or two this week just to go into the NCAA tournament in a better frame of mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, because sometimes these conference tournaments doesn't mean too much for the teams that are already in, like Seton Hall, Creighton, Villanova. I think it's more important for the teams like Butler, Xavier, Georgetown, but what do you think of? Do you think team chemistry is important in this? Like, I guess you were talking about confidence before. You think these conference tournaments are important for team chemistry?
Well, I don't know about that. I'm just saying that I just think if you don't want to go in on a 3-game losing streak, and I think the chemistry is fine. I think they're a together team. They've been together all year. I think right now it's more physical, and maybe, who knows, maybe it's best if they don't make a long run in the Big East tournament, Chris, because Coach Kevin Willard has talked about how some of his players, particularly Miles Powell and Quincy McKnight, are a little worn down from the long season, and the fact they're both dealing with some tendonitis in their knees, and who knows, maybe it's better that they don't have a long run at the Garden because they can get a little more rest, because if they do play in Albany, which we all expect, that starts next Thursday. So if you go all the way to the final on Saturday night, that's at this time of the year, it's kind of a quick turnaround. Because remember, you don't know until Sunday night who you're playing. You have to start scouting them. You have to figure out your travel plans. It's not like you have a game already scheduled the next Thursday.
Right. I would play a little devil's advocate with you on that one, because I think if they go all the way in this Big East tournament, I think they could potentially get a 2 seed. I think at worst, they lose to Marquette. They might get bumped down to a 4, but I think it could benefit them to go all the way, get that 2 seed. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I know what you're saying, Chris, but I've just seen times where the committee didn't seem to care. I mean, maybe they would. Maybe that would give them just a little bit of something to differentiate themselves between themselves, Villanova and Creighton, because they all finished at a tie. But I still remember 2016 when they kind of came out of nowhere to win the tournament, and they got a lousy 6 seed against Gonzaga and Denver. So it's up to the committee. We won't know. You might be right. You might be very right, but we won't know until next Sunday how this committee views conference tournaments. It seems, I mean, I know there are guidelines, but it does seem to me, Chris, that every committee has a little different view of the conference tournaments.
Yeah.
Some give more weight than others. That's what I'm saying.
And I'd just like to get your opinion on this from a general perspective. What are your overall thoughts on conference tournaments in general, just from the big conferences to the little ones? As I was saying before, probably not the most important thing for teams like Seton Hall, Creighton, Villanova, but I guess for the mid majors out there, the one team leagues, it's obviously huge. For the bubble teams, it's huge. What are your thoughts on conference tournaments in general? Do you put a lot of stock into them?
I don't know. I don't particularly love them. I mean, I think some of them are events. I mean, the Big East is an event. The ACC is an event. I think even though it's not as old as the others, I think the Big Ten has become an event. But I don't like it with the mid-majors or the low majors, because it kind of devalues what happened throughout the regular season. Northern Iowa put together this great season in the Missouri Valley, and now they probably won't get in because, granted, that's their own fault if they lost by 21 in the quarterfinals. But you look at all these teams that a great season can be ruined in 20 minutes, but they're not going anywhere because they're TV exposed. They provide TV exposure. They make most of them make money, so they're not going anywhere. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the mid-major ones, and you could argue that the big ones, it's just more, like you said, it's better for the teams that are on the fence who might or might not get in. They can impress people with a good victory or two. But honestly, I mean, they have their place, and I can't deny the Big East is very exciting at the Garden. I've been to it many times, but if they were gone, I wouldn't cry. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's kind of become an event now, like you were saying, with the Big East tournament. I know it's not the same like it used to be, but it's played in the Garden and the whole pageantry behind it. But going back to Seton Hall, how far do you think they can go in the tournament?
Well, this is the short, the long answer. I mean, it depends. So there's a real definitive statement for you, Chris. But I mean, it really is. It's as coaches say, it's cliche, but it's matchup driven. I mean, they need to avoid teams that are going to really hit the offensive glass. I mean, I know they have a great shot blocker, a great big man in Romaro Gill, who obviously just was named the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He's a terrific shot blocker, has great timing and all that, but let's face it, when your inside guy is a big shot blocker, well, if he doesn't block it, or if the shot goes up anyway, sometimes he's out of position to get the rebound. That's why some teams like such as Xavier have clobbered them on the offensive glass. And so they need to avoid a team like that. They need to play more smaller teams, although they didn't do great against Creighton last week. But Creighton's on a roll. But I do think they need to play more perimeter-oriented teams. I think that's where that. But yeah, if they get the right matchup, sure, this team has the talent. If Miles Powell gets it going, that's the big if. If Miles Powell gets it going, this team has enough to win several games in the tournament.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it all comes down to Powell. I think if he has a bad game or he gets in foul trouble, like he did against Creighton, it'll be tough for them to win. So outside of Powell or Sandro, or maybe you can include Sandro in this, but who are you looking for in the team to step up tournament time?
Well, like you said, Mamu Kalashvili, he definitely needs to step up. I mean, I was surprised. They need to go to him more, too. I mean, sometimes,
I agree.
Sometimes he just doesn't get enough shots. I thought that was the case each of these last two games. He needs to take more shots. And sometimes that's him. Sometimes he needs to demand the ball more. And sometimes they need to look for him more. I mean, I do think the offense sometimes, when it runs through Powell, the ball can stick a little bit. Again, and that's not to take anything away from Miles, who was incredible. But I do think it's at its best, like in the second half against Villanova, when he was really looking, when he get doubled and look for the open guy and find people for open shots. I mean, he had 8 assists in that game, Powell, and that's what they need to do. So I think he needs to really distribute when he's double or even triple teamed. He needs to not force it and distribute and set the other people up.
Yeah, Creighton, he had a tough game, but I think Tyshawn Alexander did such a great job on him defensively. But like you're saying, it's so important when he's on the floor for him to find that open guy when he gets double teamed. And he's so great, too, at making those cross-court passes to find the open guy to get the three. So I think it's, so imperative that Powell plays well. Yeah,
no, they're not going. They can't maximize this unless he I'm not saying he has to put them on his back and be Superman like he did last year. I mean, they have other people now. They have other options. But he needs to be at his best. He needs to he'll be the first to tell you he's been in kind of a three-point shooting slump, and he needs to break out of that. They need one of those 4 of 7 from 3, 8 of 13, or 9 of 16 overall. They can't have, if he has one of these 5 for 18 games, they could go out very quickly.
Yeah, it makes me think of Isaiah Whitehead a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Back in Denver, when he just had the worst game of his career. Can't have that this year. My other question, what would be considered a successful season? Do they need to make a Sweet 16 appearance? What do you think constitutes a successful season for this team?
I think they do. I think this is a second weekend team. I mean, some people say Elite Eight. I say if they got to the Sweet 16 and lost a tough game to a really good team, I don't think anyone could look back and complain. But I think if there is a Seton Hall Nation, it will be pretty disappointed if the season ends on the first weekend. I mean, if it ends in a round of 32 game against a 6 or a 7 seed, that's going to be a tough one for everyone to swallow, because this team has been so high in the rankings all year. Has been everyone's saying they have the potential for the Final Four. I think if they don't make it through the first weekend, that'll be a real disappointment for everybody.
Yeah, it's been 20 years since they got to the Sweet 16, and being ranked in the top 10 this year, I think most people would agree with you. Expectations definitely high here. And just also wanted to ask, you covering the team, has there been a lot of rallying behind the team, you think, from the North Jersey, New York area? What's your take on that?
I think the fans have really gotten into it. I mean, they've gotten some huge crowds this year at home. I think the fan support has never been better. But I wonder if sometimes it's a negative, though. I wonder if they press a little bit at home. I wonder if it's just weird that they were better on the road in the Big East, 7-2 on the road, 6-3 at home. And I wonder sometimes if they're just trying too hard at home because they want so badly to do so well for the home fans, give them something to see, and then they play a little tight at home. So maybe it's a good thing to get away from the Rock, to be honest with you, Chris, that they can go elsewhere and have that whole us against the world mentality, which sometimes works for teams.
And if you had to maybe pick steering away from Seton Hall here for a sec, if you had to pick a sleeper team to advance deep in the Big East tournament, who would you go with?
I think I hate to say it, but the team they're playing in the first round, even though Marquette seems to have, obviously they've fallen on hard times, when you have that one player like Marcus Howard, he could just take things over. But I guess also, I mean, you can't call Providence a sleeper, but boy, the way they play defense and control the tempo, that's a team that could win 3 games in 3 days. The problem with Marquette that I just mentioned was, they are going badly. So, but you never know. I've seen teams play badly. You never know. Teams play badly going into the conference tournament, and then they turn it around. Teams are playing great, and they're out in 1 game. So you can't ever tell. But Providence is a team that's scary because that's another team that can got a lot of muscle inside, and they've certainly, whatever was wrong with them earlier, they've corrected it, and they're really rolling right now.
Yeah, really hot right now with Pipkins and Diallo playing well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see this coming Wednesday, Big East tournament. Huge event, like we were saying. So, yeah, JP, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on this podcast episode. Really appreciate it, and best of luck. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure.
All right, have a good one. And that'll conclude things on another edition of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris Grosso, and want to thank JP again so much for coming on. Hope you guys enjoyed it as I talked little college hoops here, as I try to do an all-encompassing podcast, talk a little bit of everything, some wrestling, different sports. But as always, feedback is welcomed and encouraged. As always, follow me on social platforms. My personal Twitter, Instagram handle is at ChrisGrosso16. Podcast Instagram handle is at Basic Thoughts Pod, and the Twitter handle is at Basic Thought Pod. So again, thank you so much for listening. For the college basketball fans, Seton Hall fans, Hope you enjoyed championship week, and best of luck to your teams in the tournament. And hope you guys have a great day.